Hello everyone, my name is Mayur Chaudhary, founder and advisor of RethinkingUX, India's largest design community. Today we are honored to have with us Anirban Bhattacharya, a luminary in the realm of design thinking, leadership development, and sustainability investing. Uh, Anirban is in the industry for last 28 years, and I know that no matter how much introduction I have and I give, I won't be able to do justice. So Anirban, can you please take us through the memory lane from where you started and where you are now, and what you have learned? If you can summarize, and then we will get into more deeper discussions.
Okay. Good morning, and Mayur, and thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure chatting with you and really bouncing ideas. So 28 plus years is probably what it is. I feel like a dinosaur uh,
Yeah.
in a very young world these days. So I started my career in sales. Actually, I
Mm.
there was a time where my first job was selling mobile phones, and mobile phones look very different from what you see them to be today. They were of the size and shape and weight of a small cricket bat. And
Yeah.
I remember literally carrying them on my back in a backpack, door to door in North Calcutta, and trying to explain mobile technology in a market that had no idea how things
Mhm.
worked. I'm talking of 1995, right? So that long
Yeah.
ago. Imagine that
Yeah.
mobile phones had just come in, radio pagers were around. So I used to do that while I was also doing my graduation on the side, and for a princely sum of 1,200 rupees a month and
Yeah.
100 rupees commission per sale.
Mhm.
Uh, so it was a lot of fun. I learned a lot about sales. I kind of fell in love with selling. I fell in love with probably
Mhm.
what I then specialized in later, understanding consumer behavior. So
Mhm.
trying to work with different people, different age groups, different communities, different businesses, kind of made me realize that there is no formula that humans operate under. And the more I spent time understanding people, the better I would be able to kind of communicate as well as convince them to kind of do what I would like them to do. And at that point in time, when you're selling, that's all you want to do.
Yeah.
Fast forward, business school. I am Kolkata, and then working in various companies from ITC to American Express to PricewaterhouseCoopers to Metro Cash and Carry to my last assignment, which was with the Seattle-based venture fund called Intellectual Ventures. Uh,
Mhm.
and that ended in all probably in the roles of marketing, sales, market strategy, customer acquisition, go to market, and stuff like that. Everywhere, this was very important for me, understanding the people I'm trying to kind of get on my
Yeah.
side, whether they're an internal stakeholder or somebody in the market, somebody who's a customer or client or what have you. And that's when I think back in 2010, 11, I got exposed to design thinking.
Mhm.
And it was fascinating because I went for that course because, I mean, my company sent me for that course because we were dabbling in this idea of customer centricity. Again,
Mhm.
Mayur, this is 2009, 10, 11. So
Yeah.
customer centricity isn't really something we talked much about.
Yeah.
But, you know, again, coming from a background of, sales and talking to customers, this made complete sense. I mean, forever we were creating pitches and campaigns thinking, how well do we know our, target audiences, target customers?
Yeah.
You build your customer profiles, uh, all of that. And suddenly we were talking personas and doing empathy research, doing the research yourself. So I fell in love with the idea of research because to me, even as I do this now so often, my team does it so often, the joy of doing this work is in the research part, discovering who your
Yeah.
audiences are, going deep to understand their needs, desires, motivations, concerns, what makes them do what they do. And then I kind of came on my own 2011 onwards. The Painted Sky is 17 years old. It was started
Mhm.
by my partner back in 2006, but I joined only in 2011 when I finally hung up my corporate boots after
Mhm.
some 16, 17 years. And so, yeah, it's been 12 years of doing this now. We are a leadership development firm, and of course, we're going to talk about that, I'm sure. And
Yeah.
I specialize in the space of innovation and design thinking. I've been now in that 11 years here and probably 10 odd years as innovation work that I did in my previous life. 20 odd years of working with clients in the space of, you know, understanding what is innovation, catalyzing innovation, and then I think scaling innovation. These are the things that we do well. So I think that's pretty much what I do, and yeah, that's a little background, I guess.
Yeah. No, say you are quite vocal and you are quite active on the social media. I have been following your posts for quite some time, and I don't shy away saying, I think you are one of the finest design thinking facilitators, which I have.
I hope I
seen.
don't say that. I hope I don't say that. You're saying that.
Yeah. I am saying that because and I don't think anyone is doing facilitation for design thinking for last 12 years, right? And even though I have been doing this for quite some time, every workshop is unique in its own way, right?
Absolutely.
No matter how well you prepare, right? Because of the audience and the diversity that they bring on the table, you need to improvise on the go, right?
Absolutely.
So, and also in the industry, there are fine leaders who are conducting design thinking sessions for your organization, right? My next question to you is, what's the philosophy of painted sky, and how it is different than anything else that is happening in the industry? What is the USP or the uniqueness? I somewhere saw that art-based approach is also one of the way for you, right? So, I, along with my audience, would like to know what's that uniqueness, what that art-based facilitating of design thinking.
Yeah. So first of all, I don't think I can sit here and claim that we are unique. I don't think anybody is unique anymore. So many years ago, one of my marketing professors taught me a term which I still use, and it's probably that there's nothing called USP left in the market, because in this copy-paste business, anybody can do anything, particularly when you don't own IP, when you're pretty much working in the open market. What we claim to have is probably a competitive value proposition. I call it a CVP. And that is something that we are constantly refining. I mean, how can we remain competitive? And that value proposition is a differentiation for us. So if I again go back a bit, I think my exposure to art-based happened when I was in the US, and in the assignments, and it was experiencing how, you know, you could as a simulation, okay, to drive human actions, and out of that draw out learnings. So when let me give you a little background to this. So if you look at the theories that abound in this space, there's been a lot that's been written up. Not so much recently, I don't see that, but there was a time when art-based was a new thing. And from Harvard Medical School to INSEAD to Yale, everybody was dabbling with art-based methods. And it was coming from the background that the human attention span is reducing. And we are becoming more and more transactional. Whether it's a doctor who's trying to prescribe medicines, you know, I go back from, and probably you too, from a time when doctors used to spend some time listening to symptoms, listening to the story of the patient. These days, I think it's you come in and you're sent for a test, and based on the test results, you're given a medicine. And so what started to happen, and theory, there is a lot of theory around this, and there are many case studies, is that medical students' diagnostic ability started to come down because they were so dependent on tests. It's like you're so dependent on Google Map that you've forgotten to look up and look at, you know, landmarks and find your way.
Yeah.
And I think there was a pushback from insurance companies as well as hospitals saying that colleges needed to bring up the diagnostic abilities. And one very innovative way that colleges did that was that to make students sit in front of paintings or sculpture and try to look at that and try to understand what's happening. Look at the background, look at the complexion of people, look at their facial expressions, try to build a story just from a static image. And this made them slow down the processing and dive deep into the details to try and come to some conclusions. Not all conclusions are correct, but at least you're starting to think in that direction. So I got exposure to this, and I thought that this was very fascinating. So when we started doing this in India, we really improvised on this, because from a college level or a theory level, we took it to a corporate classroom, because we were very clear we wanted to do it in the corporate classroom. The background to that was, for 16, 17 years, I was sitting in corporate classrooms and I was bored out of my skull. The same PowerPoint, the same pedagogy, the same way of a talking head coming and saying what we should learn. And there are exercises and activities. But what we realized was, what if we could make it more experiential and fun? And so we introduced painting. Now, Mayur, there are 2-3 things here. One, at multiple levels. One is, it's a deep experience. Most of us haven't painted since we probably left school. And I'm talking of vice presidents of investment banks and, managing directors of engineering companies who are suddenly being given a canvas and paints and brushes and saying, okay, paint your vision of the organization. And you don't just paint it, but paint as a group. And then what? And so this activity is about 2-3 hours, but this is therefore not the only thing. The learnings from this becomes what is the pillar, or what I would say the driver for the entire learning experience. So it could be a 2-day workshop on emotional intelligence. And through that painting, you demonstrate EI, demonstrate how you interact with each other, how are you communicating, how good are you in collaborating, how you are, what are some of the areas you're not good at, etc. So what painting started giving was a very non-threatening, a non-competitive, and a non-judgmental space. Because the reality is that most of us are not great at this, not great in kind of giving shape on canvas. So we are still drawing stick figures and triangles for mountains. And so our entire point was, it doesn't matter the quality of art you're producing. That isn't the game, but it's about how did you, what is the process you went through? Introspection, interaction, ideation, implementation. And then it started to evolve that, we now have about 8 or 10 painting based modules, which are all different from each other. We can simulate conflict, we can drive collaboration, we can simulate rapid transformation or change, all within a 3-hour art activity, which are all different from each other. And they become the anchors for a larger art activity. So this was also our differentiation. We wanted to bring color to the training room. That's the philosophy. We wanted to make it an exciting activity. And then, of course, we added theater. My partner is certified in organization theater. We added cinema, we added photography, we added music, Lego serious play, all kinds of stuff. So experiential became a very big thing for us. Design thinking was happening parallel to this. So we don't necessarily use art in design thinking. However, we realized that using theater for prototyping is a very powerful way of demonstrating a value of what the experience could be. Or using Lego for prototyping or building a current customer reality would be very useful. But they're distinct from each other. So that's been the philosophy, the point of driving experiential learning and making learning come alive, so that you do things with your hands and then you reflect on what you did and draw leadership lessons out of it. What you did, why you did it, and how can you do it differently? Be it negotiation, to conflict management, to working with each other, all of that. So I think that's what I would call it, art-based.
So I had some clue about what you do, but I think, and hence the name, The Painted Sky, right? Now I know the philosophy behind The Painted Sky, and you explained it quite well. I always want to be there in your workshop someday.
Someday, I'm sure.
Someday. But tell me one thing, like Anirban, it is a little bit easy to sell design thinking because of the nature of what it is, right? How do you sell art-based approach to the senior leaders, right? Where they are more concerned about the ROI, what will happen after 1 day, 2 day, or 3 day workshop, right? And when you tell them we are unique in some way, we are art-based, right? How do you sell it?
That's a very, very good question. And first of all, I won't even tell you that selling design thinking is an easy task. I would really say that out up front, and we'll talk about that later. But it is much difficult simply because it's very abstract. It's very esoteric, very abstract. So I would say that if I again go back in the history of what we have been doing, when we started talking art-based in the market back in 2011, India was a very different market. The quality of work available in the market was very transactional. As I said, we were a cost arbitrage market, and most of the ROI conversations were in terms of skill building to deliver obvious value. But I would say that we continued telling people about this, the power of this, and we were very convinced about it. And we were very fortunate that we found some early adopters and early advocates, some leaders who were really smart leaders, I would say, who intuitively understood what we were talking about. And that could be based on their own background in the global space where they had experienced something like this. And they suddenly said, aha, there's somebody doing this in India. Or they could extrapolate that what we were saying could be linked to learning and could be therefore linked to learning outcomes. So that was a great place to start. It gave us the necessary differentiation and also gave us a foot in the door.
Okay.
We don't have an HR or learning and development background. So we are outsiders in everything. We're not even designers when we talk design thinking. And I think our greatest strength or advantage has been that we have been outsiders. We can take a longer view at things rather than get too caught up in it. And we are also often outside the politics of it. So having said that, now the second part of it was what we also realized, Mayur, and this is an important point, is that, and it probably comes with a background in sales, is that you have to understand outcomes. If I go and try to sell art-based for the sake of the art-based or the joy of art-based, unfortunately, there won't be too many takers. So therefore, we are rarely ever talking to somebody that you're doing art for the sake of art. You're doing art as a simulation through which you will learn about change management. You're doing art as a simulation through which you will learn about conflict management or stakeholder influence. So the art is a means to that end. Now, you could do that as a game. Now, Indian market was used to games or role plays or stuff like that. So we replaced one. We're saying that you've done it that way. Now, why don't you try this? And it was brilliant. We made people literally fight with each other in a rapidly changing environment with paints and canvases. Leaders were like, whoa, this is what we do in our work, at work. When suddenly change happens, we are not comfortable with change. We fight, we resist, we don't like our stakeholders. And you were demonstrating that on something like a 2-3 hour painting activity. And then we would do a long debrief saying, what did you learn from it? What did you do and why did you do it? Is this how you behave back at work? What could you do differently? And that became the driver for the learning outcome. So the fact is, if the learning outcome got met, that people walked away saying that we learned 3 things about influencing stakeholders or managing conflicts better, or we understood our own emotional intelligence or emotional agility better, and art enabled it. From learning and development to business leadership, everybody was happy. And then, it's a small world, word of mouth traveled, social media worked, and there were people who were curious, wanting to try it. And then it just went a bit viral, I think, and suddenly people were doing that. And so it was tough at the start, but I think later on we have enough results to show. If you go on our website or our social media pages, you'll see hundreds of pictures of people painting, having fun, but also negotiating with each other, are building shared stories, expressing the vision of the company or what the cultural pillars of the company should be, and then discussing what behaviors must be there to support those cultural pillars. And so those kind of things can happen, and it's very magical in a workshop, actually.
Yeah, no, I think for you, the basics worked quite well. The word of mouth, you made your customers your biggest advocates, right, of the great work that you guys did or are doing, right? Tell me one thing. So how is your early preparation for all these workshops? And I'm sure all these preparation must be different than the previous one, right? So if you are going for a next workshop, right, how much lead time that you have to prepare for that workshop? Because I'm also asking because most of the design facilitators who are watching this show now, right, talk show now, I think it's good for them to I think you can be a successful design facilitator only if you have a good early planning, right? Just a high level thinking around this. What all you seek for from these organizations or the team, and how do you plan it before you hit the conference room or the workshop hall to conduct a 3-day, 2-day, or even a month-long workshops?
Or some of them can be 6-month-long journeys, right? From discovery of your customer or user all the way to tested prototypes and assessments. It could be anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think you hit the nail on the head that preparation is everything. And I think I don't give free advice because I think it's of no value. But if ever people ask me, I keep telling people this one thing: prepare, and prepare some more. Practice. In the sense, I still do that after doing it. I'm also very fortunate that I have a fantastic team working with me. The Painted Sky team it's one of the largest design thinking teams anywhere. We have one of the largest design thinking, coaching, training, and consulting practices in the world because of the sheer volume of work we do. Over 100 clients in 18 countries. And now the thing is, but at the same time, we are very conscious of, complacency, that it's the same program over and over again. So one of the things we are very clear on doing is the client conversations are very key for us before anything. Whether we are working with a government trying to figure out how to, revolutionize their education curriculum, to working with a food delivery app company and improving their delivery executive experience, whatever, and I'm talking of extremes, we would sit down with the stakeholder and ask them a series of very, very powerful questions, which is about the background of the people who are going to be in the room. Why should they be in the room? Okay, or in other words, the way I frame it is what is happening in the absence of, let's say, design thinking. Because too often, Mayur, what happens is design thinking is also a buzzword. I remember in one of your early interviews, you had asked me that is design thinking a victim of its own success, and I had completely agreed. Because we have got too many fly-by-night, hole-in-the-wall consultants who have watched a video here or read a book there and become design thinking consultants. We are very clear that the team we have must have done design thinking on the ground. What we call the dust on the shoes. You have to ride a bike with a sales guy, or work at a dealership, or sit in a classroom, understand how classes are happening, to understand the reality of current experiences. And you can't do this through theory. You have to do it. Now, that also gives us an understanding of what we therefore need to do in the classroom. So going back to my point, I would sit with a client and say, tell me why you want this. Because everybody wants to do design thinking. And I can safely tell you that almost 20-30% of the people, after we have a conversation, we realize they don't need design thinking. They need something else. But they think they need design thinking. So we ask them why you need it, who's there, why do you need it, what, and the most important question, what is your desired outcome? What is your desired outcome from the workshop? And this is a 2-level question. What is your desired outcome from the workshop, which could be 2-day, 3-day, 3 months, whatever. And what is your long-term desired outcome from the people who are going to be participating? What do you want them to do differently? What should change for them? Do more of, less of, ever. And finally, how will you measure your success? How will you know you're successful? What will success look like? Because it can be, that's a tough question, because when you're changing behavior, how do you measure success? But, we have seen, based on our experience, what are some of the manifestations of the change. So it's very difficult. You would say, we want improved empathy. Now, how do you measure improved empathy? First of all, how do you measure empathy? And then how do you measure an improvement? So we say, what will it look like on the ground? So how would you know somebody being more empathetic than the next person? Now, those could have markers. I mean, are you listening better? Are you asking more questions? Are you wanting to spend time understanding your stakeholder? Are you jumping to conclusions less? Are you spending more time understanding the problem? Are you ready to go back and listen again? Okay. Are you suspending on your own biases, your own belief system to say, I don't know, let me find out. Now, and this is just one example. So if somebody tells us something that could be abstract, we help the client to nail it down, saying, this is what it should look like on the ground. And then we find agreement. So that also tells us what the workshop as well as the journey should deliver. So then it becomes easier. Then we work backwards from there. So if this is your target, these are the milestones. So by end of this phase, you should be here, etc. And there's a constant check-in. You need to constantly check in. Is it landing right? Exactly as you said, every workshop is different. Every audience is different. So you have to understand, are you doing it right? Because I may have done thousands and thousands of hours. My team has done some 22,000 hours of work in this space. We hear that from our peers. But every workshop is different. So that 22,000 hours mean nothing if on that day, at that moment, that audience is not understanding what we're saying or is not being able to relate. So you have to reflect, you have to pause, you have to understand what's happening, take that feedback, and exactly as you said, improvise if you have to. And that improvisation can be completely dramatic. I have many examples. I have done it. I've seen my team do it, where midway through a workshop, we pivot and we say that this is not working, dump it. Now, again, doing this for so long has given us so many methods and means and tools and approaches that we have that flexibility. We know there is no one way of doing this. You still want to, right? But you can dump one tool and change to another, or you can dump the entire approach and you realize that this team doesn't really do much on this element, but is really struggling on the other because of the nature of their work, etc. So that's another way in which we would improvise as we go forward. But again, it needs practice, it needs that experience. And one more point before we continue is that we are also very tough with our clients. Something I would tell anyone who's wanting to listen to this. Demand more from your clients and tell them you're demanding more because it is good for them, which means pester them for answers. They don't have a great answer or they have a vague understanding and you decide to run with that, you're setting yourself up for failure. Because at the end of it, you will be blamed if the workshop doesn't land right or the project doesn't go well. You can go back and say, oh, but you didn't give us enough reasons for success, but that won't work. So pester. And for longer engagements, this is something we have been doing for the last 5-6 years and it's been very successful. We get the leadership who's sponsoring to sign off on what we call the 3S model. The leader has to sponsor the team, support the team, and sustain the learning. In other words, give the team a chance to practice what they have learned. Otherwise, it's pointless. If they come back from a workshop and they realize that it's still business as usual and nobody cares. Second, support them if they fail. Give them project opportunities, application opportunities. And the third, you have to realize that learning will disappear if you don't sustain it over time. So what are the micro learning inputs? What could be, assessments, further inputs, etc. you give afterwards so that it can, otherwise things won't work. So again, by doing it for so long, we have the to demand these things. But my recommendation to anyone is to not compromise on this. You'll all succeed better.
Yeah. So for me, I think there are 3 takeaways. One, early prep, and that is a must.
Yes.
Second is collaborating with your design and with your team, right? Bring them on board early on, right? Have their skin in the game, right? Most of the places, what I say is there is a design thinking session is planned to happen on so and so date, and the entire audience turns up on the same day without any context, right? Except that, okay, I have a L&D budget. There's a design thinking session that is happening. It will be for 3 days in a 5-star hotel, right? And last but not the least, improvise. Things can go wrong. You need to tweak it around, right? And then move on. So 2 things. One is the easy one. The other is a tricky one, Anirban. How big is your team? You said that you have a biggest design thinking facilitators in your company, right? How big is the team?
No, I won't say we are the biggest, but we have a largest team. We have right now close to 12 people who are working only on design thinking, and they're all certified facilitators. So we run our own design thinking based coaching certificate program. We are the world's, the International Coaching Federation, the ICF, the world's largest executive coach training company. We are the only one in the world where we offer a coaching certification which leverages design thinking. The next batch actually launches in November. So there's a deep dive into design thinking while you learn how to be a practicing coach. So all our facilitators have gone through that. So they are very, very certified. They've all also gone through various other certifications from all the big college names that you can think of. I am myself certified from Hasso-Plattner Institute as a design thinking coach. So we look at certification seriously, but we also look at practical knowledge. So you must have done it, or if you haven't done it but you know it, with us you will get to do it. So there will be enough project opportunities. If nothing else, you will do a project with learning and development community to understand learning needs, learning experience design, something that, it's not theoretical. You have learned it. So it is a large team, but our model is that we don't have people on payrolls. We work with consultants, but we have exclusivity with consultants when it comes to training, which is a very robust model. And on an ongoing basis, we have new talent onboarded. Constantly, people are coming in, and of course, people move out. As you know, that's the reality of it. We are very quality conscious of people who are working with us. So it's a team that delivers strong results.
And the training that you mentioned, Anirban, which is planned to go on the floor in November. What's the timeline? How is it a month?
No, it's a 4-month journey, 4 to 5 months depending on breaks. It's called the Innovation Coaching Certificate Program, ICCP. As I said, it's a executive coaching program, coach training program with focus on design thinking. So
how much is the commitment fee for that program?
I think there are 2 levels for it, because if you are looking to just learn, it's a 66-hour learning program. And if you want also to become certified, then you need to put in another 10 hours. So it's a 76-hour learning program. And the fees you asked, did you ask for the fees?
Yes. So I don't call it fee, I call it commitment fee. And that's what we call also on the Rethinking UX, because it's not that you want to make money, but you want a committed partner to be there.
Completely. See, the thing is, the money we make from this is, it doesn't even register on our register. It's a very small. But exactly as you said, it's commitment. The fees are for the 66-hour program, it's 1.5 lakhs. And for the 76-hour program, it's 2 lakhs.
Cool. Good. I think we touched upon many aspects of design thinking, planning, and everything else, right?
Yes.
And there are so many design leaders, design thinkers, and there are many of them, they are emerging design thinkers, right? Practitioners, and they are changing the shape of design thinking. If you have to give your feedback or your mantra for your last so many years of experience, right? Things to avoid as a design thinking facilitator, right? Because I take it as a serious affair, right? Because you are responsible for shaping the mind, future, and the way of working for your entire audience, right? Which can be 30, 50, no, God knows, right? What are those mantras that you would like to give it to all our listeners who are into this field, or the folks who want to jump into this field to shape the entire industry?
Okay. Well, first of all, I don't think I have a mantra as such, Mayur.
Experience.
But I think if I go back to that, I think I can only tell you what has worked for me, and by extension worked for us so far. Whatever it has worked. I won't say that we are very successful, but whatever little success we have seen. I think I've already mentioned this. First of all, I think we have to be humble and accept the fact that we don't know everything, and really go back to understanding humans and learning who they are, why they are coming, and what is it that will give them value. So I think very important for us to remember is that we owe them a good experience. I think this is a very important point that I tell all my team. When you're standing in front of people, 8 hours, 16 hours, whatever you're standing for, you owe it to that audience that they get a good learning experience. And that learning experience isn't gyan, isn't entertainment.
Yeah.
You could be cracking jokes and they had a lot of fun, but at the end of it, nothing happened beyond that. I see enough people try doing that. I think that's not important. It's important, yes. Engagement is important, fun is important. We have a lot of fun in a classroom. But you have to keep in mind what is that desired outcome, the learning outcome. Why are they here? And that's the value you're bringing. So for that, yes, as you mentioned, prepare, practice, understand that need, and really be committed to delivering. Not committed to passing those 8 hours or just, ho gaya, paisa mil gaya, let's move on. That's not how you build a business. You can get 1 or 2 workshops that way, but it doesn't get you ahead. I think that is the only thing. Be committed to it. The other thing I want to also remind folks here is that practice design thinking. Design thinking, the great challenge in design thinking today is that it looks deceptively easy. So I actually, in my workshops, we tell people that how do you define design thinking? I call it common sense, because forever, whether you're doing sales, you're doing a presentation, you're trying to communicate, know your audience, know your customer, these are things we keep talking about. So design thinking fundamentally looks like that. But only when you go deeper and deeper, you understand, you're trying to understand psychology of people, behaviors, philosophies behind actions, mindsets. So it's not about learning 5 steps and 10 tools. It's about investing in going deeper and falling in love with it. It's not transactional. It's not that I see a lot of people who come to us for interviews saying, oh, I also do communication skills programs, I also do negotiation skills programs, and I also do design thinking programs. It's because you're looking at it as, just something that you run as a workshop. But for me, a design thinking facilitator, okay, I'm not taking anything away, they could be great facilitators. But I'm saying a good design thinking facilitator must be ready to invest in herself, to understand why she's doing it. So develop the mindset and understand the mindset that leads to design thinking. And then also, and I think I mentioned this to you earlier, that for us, process is the easy part. And 99% workshops focus on process. 5 steps, kar liya, and you're done. But for us, a good design thinker is somebody who has an attitude for human centricity, solving problems through empathy and experimentation. And this needs attitudes. And you have to understand what builds that. So being comfortable in the problem space, don't jump to conclusions, don't race ahead for a solution. Spend some time understanding the problem. But also maintain discipline through the journey, that there are stage gates. We will spend this much time and then move to the next stage. Otherwise, you will forever only talk problem and you'll never get to solution.
True.
And the last thing, just to add, is that design thinking also involves skills. Skills like listening, questioning, stakeholder management, ideation across hierarchies. How do you deal with egos in a workshop? Okay, because you have a management trainee and a managing director sitting together, and you have asked everybody to freely ideate, and you think your job is done because you have asked them, but you don't have, do you have the skill to moderate that conversation so that actually the management trainee also feels comfortable speaking up? And depending on organization cultures, it could be very difficult. So your skill, as well as developing those skills in participants. Again, that's something that I find missing in a lot of our design thinking approaches. We only do process. We don't focus on mindset building and skill building. Very, very important for execution success.
The design thinking has become victim of its own shine, right? Every time when I start conducting a design thinking session, and I've done it for half a day, 1 day, 2 day, and 3 days, mostly for the organizations. Unlike you, when you do it as an outsider, I do it as an insider. The first thing which I keep in mind to communicate to them is anything and everything that we do. Maybe there will be an icebreaker day, maybe there will be an activity, fun activity. Everything has to go back to the innovation, product building, product design, right? And so on, and the outcome, right? But somehow in the industry, people think that design thinking is fun. It is fun way of learning, right? But that context needs to be set. The next question, and most likely the last one, which every designer should be doing. Unfortunately, even I couldn't get a chance to do it until now. Design thinking for social change, right? And I know that you are doing something, right? Sustainable development through design thinking. Can you please touch upon, tell our audience what that is, and why it is important
Yeah.
for every designer or every professional to get into this, or at least contribute their share of journey?
Well, I think that's a very important question. I think, and we have just started doing something, but there's a background to it. So I think I've always been very, very involved, and right from my college days, and I was into student politics and all of that. So society, social change, impact on society, these are things that have always mattered to me. But then you get into the rigmarole of your jobs, etc., and you realize that you are only delivering shareholder value, shareholders you don't know. So then when you do your own business, you do it your own way, you have the luxury of expanding beyond that. So we have been dabbling with this for some time. We have done some very good work with the Delhi's government school education system at one level, with a lot of not-for-profits. We have worked helping them develop solutions for education and employability. These are the two pet areas of mine, actually. We have focused a lot on. Social justice has been one of the values that has come through out of this. I've been also very fortunate to work with organizations that are bringing funds into India, like the Dell Foundation and others, who in turn are funding very powerful not-for-profits who are working in empowerment, education, employment, etc. So we do design thinking with their grantees, the not-for-profits that they fund, where we are on the ground, very close, looking at economically challenged families, socially challenged families, ability-wise challenged families, and candidates and students, and how we can enhance their education experience, job prospects, etc. And again, it's doing design thinking, not just giving lectures on design thinking, but going out there, working with people, understanding on the ground how that's happened. This kind of this historically, this goes back a little bit. In 2021, I did a project now with a fashion business out of Delhi. And I was one of the things that problems we were trying to solve, one waste, massive waste of the industry, most pollute after oil and gas. Okay. I will go on something like called a personal crusade. It was called Fashion Diet, which was nothing. In 2022, I decided I will not buy any fashion item or accessory. Then it suddenly got a lot of traction, and that turned into a design thinking project. And a fairly large design thinking project. We spoke to over 2,500 sustainable fashion customers and over 100 sustainable fashion brands. I'm using the quotes because both are very vague terms. And what we discovered out of it was that we were trying to build a community. The Fashion Diet became a community, but we realized that all that is fine. There are a lot of brands or a lot of solution providers using everything from blockchain to carbon capture to AI to impact sustainable fashion and by extension sustainability. But their kind of businesses are not some things that the typical VC would invest in. And they are often early stage innovation companies, and they're struggling. So that led us to come up with this entire idea of a venture fund, which is actually an accelerator, but which is also raising its fund. It's called 7th Gen Ventures, 7th Gen or 7th Generation. Interesting Native American concept, which we follow. It's an Iroquois Indian concept that says that all our decisions must be taken considering the impact on the next 7 generations. So if you can think of what is the impact of your decision today on the 7th generation from now, think of your choices in terms of environment, in terms of sustainable practices, in terms of, diversity in your organization, all kinds of things. So it links to ESG, it links to the sustainable development goals, etc. So 4 of us are now building this company. We have built this company, of course. We're running it. We're talking to startups all the time who are focused on sustainability and climate action, etc. We have a lot of corporate clients who are funding this, who are essentially investing in our acceleration model, who are funding individual startups who are solving their problems for the corporates. We are working with a bunch of IIMs and IITs, etc., working with their incubators where they have interesting startups or interesting ideas, then which we are accelerating and taking to the market. But it's focused on sustainability and social change. And the background to that and the spine of that is design thinking. We are taking all these startups through design thinking to understand, do you understand your customer? Most of them come to us with a solution and we ask them, have you understood the problem? And we send them back to do their research. We help them do the research and figure out what is the actual problem and then modify or build new solutions. Similarly, we take it to corporate clients who are working with, let's say, building cars to improving bottling to improving supply chain. And we do design thinking with them to say, let's understand the real problem. And that problem could be yours, the problem could be your suppliers, your vendors, your supply chain. And let's see then what could be the, after we have understood the problem, we would take it to the ecosystem and say, can you help us solve it, to startups, to organizations, etc. And so we are trying to build a collaborative space where startups, academia, corporates, and government come together. India has huge problems, and we are trying to solve applying a design thinking principle at scale. So it's very early days. We're just about 6 months now, but the background is our work in design thinking, and we are seeing very, very good response from the world.
Great. And it's also our responsibility because of the reach that we have, right? Whenever we conduct design thinking sessions, I remember in last couple of sessions that I have done, right, workshops, I also give them some food for thought, right? And at least go back and think. It takes 450 years for a polythene to degrade, right?
Absolutely.
It takes 800 liters of water to make one pair of jeans, and we have 10 of them we don't even use, right? I think these examples, if you bring with numbers, right, it's also shifting the mindset, right?
Completely.
But anytime if you need any help, Anirban, on your noble cause, Rethinking UX being India's largest design community, we are up for it, without any if and else. But I think today it was pleasure talking to you. Every time I talk to you, we have a good candid discussion. There's a lot that mutually we learn from each other, and I think from this talk show, our audience will have a lot to ponder on, lot to think and re-improvise how they do, what they do, and where they do, right? So thanks a lot, Anirban. And it was a pleasure talking to you. Thanks for your time. And anytime, anything that you need from Rethinking UX community, we are all up for it. So thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mayur. It is a pleasure. And I think one of the things we have to now remedy is to meet in person, since we are both in Bangalore. If Bangalore's traffic, the greatest design thinking challenge in the world is Bangalore's traffic. If that allows us, we should definitely meet up. But thank you for the offer. We will surely take you up on it, because sustainability is not woke. It's not, climate action is not something we can move away from or look away from. Look around us, and I think every conflict today is happening because of the pressures on the environment, which is hitting our agriculture, to our lifestyles, to our livelihoods. And I think design thinking, or design, I would say, is very well equipped to address the core issues by understanding both why things are where they are and what needs to change. And I think the design community has a massive responsibility in it. One of my design idols, Mike Monteiro of Mule Design, calls it that the world is operating the way we have designed it. So it's our responsibility to do something about it, to redesign it if we have to. And if we can work together, I'm sure we will. But I'm excited. This is a great space. I think the whole world needs to learn design thinking. And we are just making steps, and you are joining that journey, and Rethinking UX is doing phenomenal. I've been following you guys. I'm a big fan of what you're building, what you've achieved. Super job, man.
Thanks, Anirban. Thanks a lot. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye. Have a good day.